Hi, and welcome back to Fan the Flame Dates. I'm Scott Phillips with House on the Rock Family Ministries. In this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about the influence that we have on our kids as parents. I still remember that first day of school for my oldest son, Greg. The sleepless night before, the long, slow walk to the bus stop, the slouched shoulders and worried looks, wiping away tears, that hug as the bus pulled up, lasting just a little bit longer than normal. And that was me. Greg was fine. He ran to the bus stop, jumped up and down as the bus pulled up, and gave a big smile and a wave as he bounded up the bus steps. Meanwhile, I was barely keeping it together. Fairly typical stuff for your oldest child's first day of school. But here's the real interesting part. It happened again the next year for first grade and for every year since. And please don't ask me how I handled it when my little girl went to school for the first time. Now, I'm not an overly emotional guy, but something about that first day of school really gets to me. In fact, I'm getting a lump in my throat just filming this. A good friend once pointed out to me that as a stay-at-home parent, I had virtually exclusive influence on my kids. I could control who they played with, what music they listened to, and what TV shows they watched. Even if I couldn't be physically with them at any given moment, I could control who was. And as I watched that school bus pull away and tearfully watched Grave bravely wave to me one last time out the window, it dawned on me that this time of life was over for him and for me. That sense of loss that I felt was very real, and despite being warned that this would happen, as I watched my exclusive influence disappear down the road, I was truly in mourning. It wasn't until Greg and Abby started going to school that I realized just how limited my power as a parent is. They listened to songs on the bus that I wouldn't have played on our radio. They learned about TV shows and movies that we didn't watch in our house. They learned some new words. Slowly, I could see the world influencing them. My job as a parent was getting harder. Now, God understands the difficulty of parenting. He knows all too well the corrupting influence that the elements of this fallen world can have on our kids. So he wants us to be as involved and influential in their lives as possible. Many of you are familiar with Proverbs 22:6. It implores, train the child in a way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. This proverb should be all the motivation we parents need to invest all we have into our kids. After all, a vibrant walk with the Lord is what we all want for our kids, right? If we believe, and I do, that the Bible is the inspired and inerrant Word of God, then verses like Proverbs 22:6 can be troubling, especially when it appears that our children are turning from the way they should go. But those verses needn't be troubling to us. When we read and interpret the Bible, we need to understand what type of literature we are reading. Proverbs may be best described as wise sayings that are generally true. They're not guarantees. Unfortunately, some parents feel tremendous guilt when they see their children stray from the faith, feeling as if they have somehow failed. The fact is that our faith as parents can't save our kids. As they grow, it will be up to them to choose to walk with God. Romans 14:12 says, "So then each of us will give an account of himself to God." God understands that our influence as parents has limits. He created each of us with the ability to turn from truth. So we shouldn't be blaming ourselves when our kids choose wrongly. Working spouses need to understand that they need to be constantly encouraging and reminding their partner that they are doing their best and that they are parenting as a team. One of the worst responses to a child's poor choices is for parents to start judging or blaming one another's efforts. Unfortunately, the local church is often a place of judgment for parents of kids who have strayed from the path. Even well-meaning comments like, "You are such a good parents, I can't imagine what you could have done differently," can often sound like judging to hurting parents. They hear the person implying that the parents should have done something differently, they just can't think of what that should have been. For parents, the bad news is that we will steadily lose influence with our kids as they grow older. Their friends and peers will continually become larger influences on what clothes they wear, what TV shows and movies they want to watch, what activities they choose to do, and especially what moral decisions they make. Children who once depended on us for every need in life will suddenly seem to have no need for us at all. And while this transition is hurtful for all parents, I believe that it affects the stay-at-home parents even more. After all, they've been the ones to provide for the majority of those needs over the years. Many times a stay-at-home parent's main sense of self-worth is derived from the fact that their children need them. And once that need is gone, the parent can really struggle with knowing what to do next. Here's the truth about this time of transition. It's supposed to work this way. We really don't want our kids to be dependent on us for the rest of their lives. In fact, we've truly succeeded as parents when they are able to live on their own successfully. When each of our kids' wedding day arrives sometime down the road, I really don't want to be sitting there thinking, I'm not done with him or her yet. There's still some stuff I want to teach them. You know, in the days of America's westward expansion, it was common for families to travel together as part of wagon trains, and at night they often circled the wagons as protection from the elements and to keep the animals safe from predators. Parents will sometimes do the same thing with their kids. They'll limit their kids' access to anything that isn't overtly Christian, keeping them close to home or the church at all times. Now, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't encourage our kids to participate in church activities or shouldn't try to steer them towards Christian friends. Clearly, we want as many positive influences around them as possible. That's a big part of our job, and we certainly have to consider the element of protection in determining what we allow our kids to participate in. But while I do believe that it is our job as parents to protect our kids, it's also important that we don't always circle the wagons around our kids whenever danger is lurking. They need to gain experience in dealing with all that the world throws at them. They need to face temptations. They need to deal with rejection. They need to stand up to immorality. Let's face it, those things are going to happen to them sooner or later, either as children, teens, or adults. I personally believe that it's far better for it to happen while they are still under my guidance and care along with my wife Mary. Even if, or rather when, they fail, at least they will do so while we as parents are still in place where we can help them pick up the pieces and help them work through their mistakes. Now, there's good news when it comes to influencing our kids as well. While we will lose our exclusive influence over our kids, we as parents will always have the most influence. As powerful as the world's influence can be, it can never overtake parental influence. Now, to be fair, when our kids are in their late teens, this ratio is fairly even, but even then, we as parents still have the majority. In fact, once our kids reach their 20s, we even begin to regain some influence. Mark Twain is credited with saying, when I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished by how much he had learned in those 7 years. Man, how true that statement is. While it may be hard to see our influence rapidly declining during our kids' teens years, we can take solace in knowing that it's only a temporary drop. So I invite you to spend some time discussing the need-to-need, nose-to-nose questions that we've prepared for you, and talk about each of you individually and how you as a couple are coping with the loss of influence on your kids' lives. We'll be praying for your discussions as you continue to seek to build your relationship and your relationship with your kids. Thanks for watching.